When Lydia from HR pulled my name out of the brass raffle drum, I laughed before she finished reading it. Micah Jensen, she announced, you've won 4 nights for 2 at Morrow House on Astor Island. Half the ballroom applauded. I stayed in my chair. Across our table, Carmen Soto grabbed my sleeve. That's the couple's package. I know. Private cottage, ferry tickets, dinners, the whole thing. I know. You're single. Thank you, Carmen. The situation was getting away from me. Wayfair Supply's anniversary lunch had been going for almost 2 hours, which was roughly 90 minutes longer than any employee celebration needed to last. Someone from marketing had already cried during a video about the company's first suitcase. Our CFO had made a joke about airline baggage fees that deserved prosecution. The raffle was supposed to be the easy part. Lydia waved me toward the stage. I walked up, accepted a cream-colored envelope, and opened it under the lights. Morrow House, 2 Travelers Escape. Underneath were dates, ferry instructions, and a photograph of a white coastal lodge overlooking a strip of Atlantic water. I knew the place. I had spent 6 months studying travel habits for Wayfair's next product cycle, and Morrow House came up constantly in customer interviews. People loved the island because cars weren't allowed beyond the ferry terminal and because the lodge had somehow convinced wealthy adults that riding old bicycles to a lighthouse counted as transformation. I would have loved to go. That was exactly why I handed the envelope back to Lydia. Give it to Carmen. The room made a soft collective noise. Carmen's eyes widened. What? You and Luis never took a honeymoon. That was 8 years ago. Then you're overdue. Lydia hesitated. Micah, technically the winner can transfer the prize before travel paperwork is issued. Perfect. I pointed toward Carmen. She's married. I'm not. Problem solved. A chair moved near the front of the ballroom. Not loudly. It didn't need to be. Everyone knew who sat at that table. Elise Tanaka stood. Our CEO wore a black silk blouse under a cream jacket, her dark hair cut blunt at her jaw, expression unreadable in the way that had made 3 different vice presidents revise presentations after seeing her eyebrows. She looked at Lydia. Don't transfer it. Nobody moved. Then she looked directly at me. We're going. The silence that followed was almost impressive. Carmen slowly lowered the champagne glass in her hand. I stared at Elise. She didn't blink. Someone at the back of the room laughed once, realized nobody else was laughing, and stopped. I walked off the stage with the envelope still in my hand. Elise. Yes? You just volunteered for a couple's trip. I understood the noun. With me. I understood that too. The entire ballroom was listening while pretending not to. I lowered my voice. You're the CEO. You've mentioned this before. I am also extremely single. Her gaze held mine. That part is fixable. Carmen made a sound that might have been choking. I closed my eyes for half a second. The trouble with Elise was that she almost never said reckless things. She could spend 40 minutes deciding whether a carry-on zipper should move 3 millimeters and then defend the decision with research from 4 airports. If she said something insane, she usually meant it. I leaned closer. Hallway. Now. She followed me out without argument. The moment the ballroom doors closed behind us, I turned. What was that? You were giving away a trip you wanted. That isn't your decision. No. Good. We agree on one thing. Elise slipped both hands into her jacket pockets. I knew one of her stranger habits lived there. Whenever she traveled, she bought the ugliest souvenir magnet she could find. A plastic lobster from Boston. A crooked cactus from Phoenix. A glitter-covered arch from St. Louis. She kept them hidden in the bottom drawer of her office and claimed they were evidence that taste should never be left unsupervised. She also rubbed the edge of one through her pocket when stressed. Her fingers were moving now. You told me last month that Morrow House was one of the few domestic properties you actually wanted to experience, she said. I did. You also told me our company treats single travelers like they are missing a required accessory. I did say that. And then you won something you wanted and immediately handed it to someone else because the envelope said 2 travelers. I stared at her. That still doesn't explain why you stood up. A faint line appeared between her brows. Because I was tired of waiting for you to ask me. My pulse kicked hard enough to annoy me. Ask you what? To go somewhere that wasn't a client dinner, an airport lounge, or a meeting disguised as lunch. There had been 14 months of those. Too many late meals. Too many conversations after everyone else left. One night in San Francisco when a delayed flight trapped us in the airport until 2 in the morning and Elise fell asleep against my shoulder for exactly 23 minutes. I knew the number because she asked when she woke up. Nothing had ever officially happened. Elise had made sure of that, which was why I said, "You've had 14 months to ask me too." Her mouth tightened. Before she could answer, the ballroom door opened. Renee Voss, our communications director, stepped into the hallway holding her phone. Her expression was grim. "Elise, we have a problem." "What?" "Someone posted the raffle clip." I looked at her. "Posted where?" "Publicly." Of course they had. Renee held up the screen. The video had already been shared thousands of times from an employee's account. The clip started with me giving away the envelope. Then Elise stood. Then came the line. "We're going." The caption read, "When your ice-cold CEO decides you're not single anymore." I wanted the floor to open. Elise barely reacted. "Ask them to remove it." "They already did." "It's copied." Renee hesitated. "There's more." Her phone rang before she could explain. She checked the display and held it toward Elise. Margaret Tanaka, Elise's mother. Wayfair's former chief brand officer. Current board chair. Elise took the call. "Mother." I could hear Margaret's voice from 3 feet away. "Elise, tell me you are not taking an employee to Morrow House." Something changed in Elise's face. Not embarrassment. Something older. She turned slightly away. "The prize is mine to accept." "No, it is not." "Not there." "Elise," I said quietly. She ignored me. Margaret continued, sharper now. "If you go back to that property with a man from Wayfair, every lifestyle reporter who remembers the original campaign will know exactly what story they want." "Original campaign?" I looked at Elise. She had gone completely still. Then Margaret said the sentence that turned the stupid raffle into something else. "We spent 20 years making people forget what happened at Morrow House. Do not walk back in there and hand them a sequel." Elise ended the call without saying goodbye. That was unusual. With anyone else, she was almost aggressively polite. With her mother, apparently civilization became optional. Renee looked between us and decided she had reached the limit of what communications directors were paid to witness. "I'm going to contain the clip as much as possible," she said. "Also, marketing already asked whether this could become part of the fall couples campaign." "No," I said. Elise said it at the same time. Renee nodded. "Good. Nice to have alignment." Then she left. I waited until the hallway was empty. What happened at Morrow House? Elise's expression sealed itself. "Not here." That answer is getting old. "I know. You just volunteered both of us for a trip to a place your mother thinks should be buried." "Yes." "And you're not explaining?" "I will." "When?" Her fingers moved inside her pocket again. "Before you decide whether to go." That was at least fair. We ended up in one of Wayfair's product rooms on the 4th floor, surrounded by hardshell luggage prototypes in 6 shades. Marketing had named things like Canyon Mist and Midnight Current because apparently gray and blue were not emotionally available enough. Elise sat on the edge of the work table. I stayed standing. "You can still transfer the prize to Carmen," she said. That surprised me. "You just announced we were going in front of 200 people." "I am aware." "You sounded fairly committed." I was jealous. The directness knocked half my prepared argument loose. I stared at her. Elise continued before I could enjoy it. "That does not make the decision yours." "Better." I folded my arms. "So why Morrow House?" She looked toward the window. "My parents used it for Wayfair's first national campaign." "That's it?" "No." I waited. She took a breath. "I was 14. My parents had spent the previous year building the company around a simple idea: travel kept families close. Their catalog showed us hiking, cooking, carrying matching luggage through airports, laughing on docks." Her tone made laughing sound suspicious. "The Morrow House campaign became the one everyone remembered. We spent a week there with photographers. My mother wore white. My father wore linen. I was told to look delighted every time someone pointed a camera at me." I sat across from her now. "What happened?" 3 days before the shoot, my father told my mother he was leaving. I said nothing. They completed the campaign anyway. That explained more than the phone call. "The photographs ran for 4 years, Elise said. Wayfair grew. Customers sent letters about how much they loved seeing a real family traveling together." Her mouth twisted slightly. "My parents barely spoke except when a photographer told them to stand closer." "That's brutal." "It was profitable." The answer came too fast. Defensive. I let it go for the moment. "Have you been back?" "No." "How long?" 22 years. "And you still stood up?" "Yes." "Why?" Her eyes returned to mine. "Because I watched you give the trip away before asking whether there was someone you wanted beside you." That landed harder than the jealousy confession. I looked at the prize envelope on the table between us. I'm single. You are. You keep saying that like it's a technical problem. It is not a problem. Then what is it? Elise studied me for a second. A habit. I almost laughed. Being single is a habit now? No. Making yourself smaller before anyone can choose you is. That one hit. I had spent the last 6 months interviewing people who traveled alone. Widowers. Consultants. Divorced parents. People who simply like waking up in unfamiliar cities without negotiating breakfast. I believed deeply that one person was not an incomplete booking. But Elise was not talking about research. She was talking about me volunteering for every extra airport run because I had no kids to pick up. Me giving the best raffle prize away. Me telling friends I was easy about holidays because everyone else had spouses and in-laws. I leaned back. You don't get to diagnose me because you want a vacation. I don't want a vacation. No, I want 4 days where neither of us can hide behind work. That sounded dangerously close to something I wanted too. So I gave her terms. If we go, it is not a company story. Agreed. No photographers. Enthusiastically agreed. No assistants. Yes. No upgraded transportation because you hate waiting. She frowned. I don't hate waiting. You called a 20-minute ferry delay an operational insult. It was raining. No private plane. That seems unrelated. Elise. Fine. No changing reservations because you don't like a table, or room, an itinerary, or weather. I cannot change weather. You would if procurement could source it. Her mouth almost moved. I kept going. And if this turns into 4 days of you deciding what we are because you stood up first, I leave. That erased the almost smile. She nodded. All right. You mean it? Yes. Then she added, I have one condition. Of course. If you want something, you say it. I frowned. What does that mean? No giving away your half of a dinner because you assume I prefer something else. No saying I don't care when you do. No pretending you're comfortable because it makes the room easier. That is irritatingly specific. I have known you for 4 years. 4 years and we still haven't managed a date. Elisa's eyes sharpened. Then perhaps the trip will answer whether that was wisdom or cowardice. I looked at the envelope again. 4 nights. Astor Island. Morrow House. A CEO who had just volunteered to walk back into the setting of the family life she had avoided since high school. Carmen is going to kill me. No. You don't know Carmen. I bought her and Louise a weekend in Milwaukee. I stared at her. You already did what? Elise looked almost guilty. They never took a honeymoon. You solved my guilt with money. I anticipated an obstacle. That is the same thing in a better jacket. She sighed. I can cancel it. I thought about Carmen, who would absolutely enjoy 2 days away from her 3 children. No. Keep it. A tiny look of satisfaction appeared. Do not look pleased. I'm not. You are. I have limited expressions. That was a lie. I was beginning to learn them. Elise owned a travel company and carried terrible luggage. I discovered that at O'Hare. She arrived at the gate with a battered olive canvas duffel that looked like it had survived 2 wars and an angry baggage handler. I stared at it. What is that? My bag. You run Wayfair Supply. Yes. We manufacture 12 award-winning carry-ons. Yes. And you brought something with 1 functioning zipper. 2. She demonstrated. 1 zipper immediately snagged. I laughed. Elise glared at the bag. My grandmother gave it to me when I was 16. That changed the joke. Then it's perfect. Her expression softened enough to count. The commercial flight was uneventful. Elise did not complain about boarding group 4, although I could see the experience shortening her life. She bought a paperback mystery from the airport bookstore instead of opening her laptop. That impressed me more than it should have. After landing in Wilmington, we took a shuttle east and then a ferry to Astor Island. The island appeared through late afternoon haze as a thin stretch of dunes, live oaks, and weathered roofs. No cars beyond the ferry dock. Just bicycles, electric carts, and people moving slowly enough that Elise checked her watch twice in the first 6 minutes. Do not optimize the island, I told her. I haven't said anything. You've looked at the luggage cart system 4 times. It is inefficient. Vacation. Fine. Morrow House sat above the dunes, white clapboard walls and wide porches facing the Atlantic. The moment we entered the lobby, Elise stopped. I knew why immediately. A framed black and white photograph hung behind reception. A young couple stood at the edge of a dock in matching Wayfair jackets. Between them was a teenage girl with Elise's eyes. Her father had one hand on her mother's shoulder. Her mother's face was turned toward him, laughing. They looked happy. Perfectly, commercially happy. The receptionist smiled. Ms. Tanaka? Elisa's jaw tightened. Yes. We're honored to have you back. I'm sure. The receptionist's smile faltered. I stepped closer to the desk. We're checking into the raffle package. Of course. Cottage 7. She reached for 2 keys. Then another employee emerged from the back holding an instant camera. We usually take a welcome photo for our couple's wall. No, Elise said. Not coldly. Too quickly. The employee stopped. I took the keys. We'll skip it. Outside, Elise walked down the porch steps without saying anything. I followed at a distance until we reached Cottage 7. 2 bedrooms. Shared sitting room. A porch facing the water. Exactly as promised. Elise put her duffel on the floor and went straight to the window. You okay? Yes. That was a very fast yes. She rubbed the brass zipper pull on her bag. I had never noticed that habit before. Tell me something ordinary, she said. What? Anything. I looked around. There is a fake seagull on the mantel. She glanced over. A carved wooden bird sat beside the fireplace. It's a tern. You're sure? Yes. You know birds? No. The plaque says tern. I checked. She was right. That was cheap. It worked. Some tension left her shoulders. We unpacked and walked into the village for dinner. Morrow House had scheduled us at a restaurant with a handwritten card at the table. Welcome, couple 7. I turned it face down. Elise noticed. You don't have to. I know. Then why? Because we're not a numbered couple. A strange expression crossed her face. Not disappointment. Relief. We ordered seafood and argued about whether a fried oyster counted as a complete meal. Elise said no, then stole 3 of mine. Halfway through dinner, the server asked how long we had been together. Elise reached for her water. I answered first. We're not. The server blinked. Elise looked at me. I continued. We work together. The trip has a long explanation. Got it. The server disappeared. Elise set down her glass. Thank you. For what? Not inventing something because it would make the conversation smoother. One of my own conditions. I smiled. You're welcome. The next morning, the couple's itinerary suggested sunrise yoga, a tandem bicycle tour, and a picnic basket labeled for 2. I chose the lighthouse ride. Elise looked at the tandem bicycle waiting outside the lodge. No, that is the activity. Absolutely not. You move first at the raffle. This is different. How? I do not trust you with synchronized steering. That became the first genuine argument of the trip. I insisted. She refused. We ended up riding the tandem badly for 3 miles before crashing harmlessly into a patch of beach grass. Elise sat on the ground, hair half loose, staring at the bicycle. Then she started laughing. Not her controlled office laugh. Not the quiet breath she used when something was mildly funny. Full laughter. I had never heard it before. For several seconds, I forgot the CEO, the raffle, Morrow House, and every reason this was complicated. I just watched her. She caught me. What? Nothing. You're staring. I know. Her laughter faded. Something shifted between us. Then my phone buzzed. Wayfair Research. A message from my teammate, Priya Desai. Board moved your solo travel findings review to Monday after you return. Margaret wants stronger evidence that single travelers are actually underserved rather than simply price sensitive. I read it twice. Elise saw my face. What happened? I showed her. She handed the phone back. That is my mother's language. I guessed. You have the data. I do. Then present it. I looked toward the tangled tandem bicycle. And if she rejects it? Then she rejects it. You're not stepping in? Elisa's expression hardened slightly. You told me not to. Good. She stood and brushed sand from her pants. I can hate her conclusion without changing the room for you. That answer mattered. Then she looked toward the ocean road. Now fix the bicycle. You crashed it. You were steering. We were both steering. Exactly the problem. Rain trapped us inside Morrow House the next afternoon. Not dramatic storm rain. Steady gray coastal rain that made the windows tremble softly and turned the dunes the color of old paper. The lodge library had a fireplace, a wall of travel books, and a shelf of Wayfair catalogs dating back almost 30 years. Elise noticed them before I did. She stopped beside the shelf. Of course they kept these. You want to leave? No. That answer sounded deliberate. She pulled out a catalog with a faded blue cover. Wayfair, Autumn 2004. The photograph inside was the one from reception. Except now there were 6 pages of it. Elise's father carrying luggage toward a ferry. Her mother laughing under an umbrella. Teenage Elise sitting on a dock with a sketchbook while copy underneath read, "Wherever you go, go together." I looked at her. That's a lot. It sold very well. You keep measuring pain and revenue. Her eyes moved toward me. The rain tapped against the windows. I know. She closed the catalog. For a while she stood with one hand on the cover. Then she said, "My father left for good 8 months later." I'm sorry. I wasn't. The answer surprised me. I was relieved. She sat in one of the leather chairs near the fireplace. I had spent years watching both of them become different people whenever a camera appeared. My mother would reach for him. He would smile. Someone would tell me to stand between them. She stared at the old catalog. Then the photographer packed up and they went back to barely speaking. I sat opposite her. Is that why you hate photos? Yes. And company romance campaigns? Yes. Wayfair rarely used employees in lifestyle marketing. I had assumed that was simply Elise's preference for product-driven advertising. Now it made sense. Then why didn't you kill the Fall Couples campaign years ago? Her mouth tightened. Because it performs well. There was the CEO. And because my mother considers it part of the brand's history. There's the daughter. She gave me a dry look. I continued. What did she mean on the phone when she said people would want a sequel? Elise rested both hands on the catalog. 10 years ago, an industry magazine published an article about my parents' divorce and how much of Wayfair's early brand had been staged. It disappeared quickly because my mother refused every interview and the company changed direction. And if you come back here with a man? Someone gets a neat headline about the daughter recreating the famous trip. I understood now why the photo at reception felt less like nostalgia and more like a trap. You knew all of this before you stood up. Yes. You still said we were going. Yes. Why? Elise looked at me for a long time before answering. Because you had been talking about Astor Island for months. I frowned. I mentioned it twice. You mentioned the lighthouse in April. The ferry system in May. The lodge's no-car policy during the solo traveler research meeting. You bookmarked the coastal walking map on your work browser. That last one is creepy. It appeared during screen share. Still. She almost smiled. Then her expression softened again. You wanted to come here. I did. And when you won, you gave it away in under 10 seconds. To a married friend. Because you decided the prize belonged more naturally to her. That isn't crazy. No. Elise shook her head. But you do it constantly. I knew where this was going now. Christmas shifts. I sighed. Airport pickups. Saturday prototype reviews. The better hotel room when a colleague brings a spouse. You say yes before anyone asks because you think being single means your inconvenience costs less. That's not what I think. Then stop behaving like it. The words were sharp. The concern under them was sharper. I looked at the fire. My work on solo travelers had started because I hated single supplements, couple-only prizes, hotel packages built around 2 people, and the assumption that travel became emotionally legitimate only when witnessed by a partner. Somewhere along the way, I had built an identity around needing nothing from anyone. Elise saw the gap before I did. You thought I should ask you, I said. Yes. What if you said no? I might have. That is extremely comforting. You asked for honesty. Unfortunately. Her fingers moved over the catalog cover. I was jealous when you gave the trip to Carmen. I know. But that wasn't the part that made me stand. What was? Elise met my eyes. You never even looked at me. That sentence was quieter than everything before it. I had spent 14 months waiting for some sign that you might choose me outside work. Then you won a trip you wanted, and the idea of asking me did not appear to cross your mind. My chest tightened. It crossed my mind. She stopped. When? Before Lydia finished reading the prize. Elise stared at me. Then why didn't you? Because you spent 14 months making sure I didn't know whether I was allowed. That landed hard. She looked away. I let her. We had both built safer versions of the same loneliness. She hid wanting behind privacy. I hid wanting behind self-sufficiency. Finally Elise said, that is fair. Then she looked at me again. Can I ask you something now? Yes. Do you want this trip to be a date? The directness made my pulse jump. I could have said yes. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, not yet. Her face changed. Not anger. Disappointment she didn't try to hide. I continued. I don't want our first real relationship decision to happen because we're trapped on an island under a package labeled for couples. Elise closed the old catalog. All right. You're not going to argue? No. Really? I am learning that sometimes not yet means exactly what it says. She stood. Then she added, I dislike it. That part one believe. The rain was still falling when she went upstairs. For the first time since the raffle, we spent the rest of the afternoon apart. I expected the distance to feel like failure. Instead, it made the next morning cleaner. Elise went walking before breakfast. No note. No message. No carefully timed suggestion that I could happen to join. I ate alone on the porch and spent 2 hours talking with other guests. Not formal research. Just curiosity. A widower from Ohio who traveled with his best friend because neither of them liked eating dinner alone. Two sisters celebrating one sister's divorce. A married couple who took separate vacations half the year and thought people who needed identical hobbies had misunderstood marriage. A woman in her 40s who had brought her cousin because the resort's promotional package charged nearly the same rate whether she traveled alone or with someone. That one caught my attention. So you wouldn't have chosen a couple's weekend? I asked. She laughed. I chose the discount. By noon, I had 3 pages of notes. My solo travel research had started with pricing. It was becoming something larger. People did not fit neatly into single and couple. The industry kept selling relationships as room occupancy. 2 meant legitimate. 1 meant surcharge. Everything else required explanation. I returned to the cottage and found Elise sitting on the porch steps with her battered duffel beside her. She held an ugly ceramic magnet shaped like a lighthouse. I pointed at it. That is hideous. Yes. So you bought it. Obviously. Where'd you go? The old dock. I sat beside her. How is it? Smaller. She rubbed her thumb over the magnet's chipped blue paint. My mother called. I waited. She wants Wayfair to use the old Morrow House images in the 30th anniversary campaign. That seems badly timed. She thinks the attention from the raffle clip makes it useful. Of course she did. What did you say? No. That cannot have gone well. It did not. Elise looked toward the dunes. She reminded me that my childhood likeness is covered by an old perpetual release. I frowned. They can use those pictures without your permission? Legally, likely yes. The company owns the campaign archive. Even now? Yes. That bothered me more than I expected. What are you going to do? I sent legal a permanent restriction on future use of my personal likeness in Wayfair brand campaigns. I turned toward her. Can you do that? As CEO, I can propose it. The board has to approve the archive policy. And your mother chairs the board. Yes. That sounds fun. It will be vicious. She said it without drama. I studied her face. Did you do this because of my research? No. The answer came immediately. My mother doesn't know what you're presenting Monday. I haven't seen the deck. That mattered. Elise continued. I did it because I stood in that lobby yesterday and saw a photograph of a girl who had no idea her expression would still be selling luggage 22 years later. Her fingers closed around the ugly lighthouse. I'm done lending her face to the company. There was no romance in that decision. That made it feel more real. I leaned back on my hands. What happens if the board says no? I removed myself from the anniversary creative committee and publicly opposed the campaign. You love that committee. I love the work. Exactly. Elise looked at me. Those are not always the same thing. That sentence settled between us. After lunch, the resort had scheduled a sailing lesson for the couple's package. We went. Not as a date. That distinction became increasingly ridiculous after Elise nearly knocked me into the water trying to pull the wrong line and then grabbed the back of my shirt with both hands. You were falling. You pushed me. I was correcting course. You attacked course. The instructor laughed so hard she had to turn away. Elise looked offended. Then the wind caught us cleanly, the small boat leaned, and for several minutes neither of us spoke. She sat across from me with loose hair blowing across her face, one hand holding the rope, no phone, no board packet, no one telling her where to look. I wanted to photograph her. I had brought my old film camera on the trip because I still preferred it to a phone when I actually cared about an image. My hand moved toward the bag. Then stopped. Elise noticed. You can take it. I looked at her. You hate photos. I hate being arranged. That is different. Yes. I lifted the camera. Tell me if you want me to stop. I will. I took one frame. Not smiling. Not posed. Elise looking past me toward the water, sunlight on one side of her face. The shutter clicked. She didn't flinch. That tiny sound felt more intimate than a kiss would have. The industry newsletter found us on the third day. Not physically. That would have been impressive. A short item appeared online with a screenshot from the raffle video and an old Wayfair catalog image of teenage Elise at Morrow House. The headline was predictable. Wayfair CEO returns to iconic brand resort with employee companion. I showed Elise over breakfast. She read it once, then put the phone down. That was fast. Your mother is going to love this. She already sent it to me. What did she say? Elise turned her screen. Margaret's message was 6 words. This is exactly why I warned you. I handed the phone back. What's Wayfair saying? Nothing. You sure? Yes. No statement that I'm a valued employee who won a legitimate raffle? No. No comment about your private life? No. No carefully vague executive language? Elise gave me a look. I know what carefully vague executive language is. You invented half of it. She looked toward the water. I spent too long hiding behind it. That afternoon, we ran into a Wayfair distributor named Leonard Shaw at the lodge bar. He was on vacation with his wife and delighted to discover that gossip had become geographically convenient. Elise, he said warmly. Micah. Well, this explains the raffle clip. It explains nothing, Elise said. Leonard laughed. Then he turned to me. You're the solo travel guy, aren't you? I already disliked the conversation. That's one project. Hard sell now. He nodded toward Elise. Turns out even the man arguing for single travelers just needed the right partner. There it was. A joke that erased 6 months of research in one sentence. Elise's expression went cold enough to crack glass. I touched her wrist under the bar. Not to stop her entirely. Just to remind her whose argument it was. She looked at me. Then waited. That was new. I turned to Leonard. My research isn't about convincing people to stay single. He lifted his hands. I'm kidding. I know. The problem is the industry keeps treating one traveler like an unfinished pair. His smile faded slightly. I continued. Being with someone doesn't prove traveling alone was a mistake. It just means people get choices. Leonard nodded slowly. Fair enough. Then his wife, who had been silent beside him, said, I travel without him twice a year. Leonard looked offended. You make that sound intentional. It is. She smiled at me. I'd buy whatever you're working on. Conversation over. Elise waited until they left. Then she said, I wanted to destroy him. I noticed. I was very restrained. You were. Reward me. I laughed. With what? Her eyes dropped briefly to my mouth. My pulse reacted before my brain did. She looked away. Never mind. I should have let it go. Instead, I said, that wasn't a no. Elise looked back. No? No. I stepped closer. The bar was nearly empty. Late afternoon light came through the open windows. Somewhere outside, bicycles rattled over the boardwalk. She waited. That mattered. So I kissed her. Once. No dramatic collision. No desperate grabbing. Just a deliberate kiss that lasted long enough for 14 months of unfinished conversations to finally become physical. When we separated, Elisa's hand was resting lightly against my chest. This is still not the trip deciding for us, I said. Her mouth curved slightly. You are remarkably annoying after kissing. I've had practice in theory. She laughed softly. Then her phone buzzed again. This time the screen showed Sean Merritt, Wayfair's chief operating officer. Elise answered. Yes? She listened. Her expression hardened. What exactly did Margaret do? I could not hear Sean's side. Elise stood. No. Do not approve the creative brief. Another pause. No. I do not care that the media buy is reserved. Her fingers closed around the phone. Then lose the deposit. She ended the call. What happened? Elise looked at me. My mother approved the anniversary campaign without waiting for the archive vote. The old photos? Yes. How much is committed? Enough that Renee will develop and I twitch. I waited. Elise's voice was calm again. She also added the raffle clip to the opening concept. My stomach turned. So now you're the sequel. We are. I looked at her. What are you going to do? She picked up her jacket. Something my mother will consider unforgivable. Elise did not fly home. That would have been the old move. Take control. Get in the room. Outwork everyone until the problem surrendered. Instead, she called an emergency board meeting for 4 o'clock and joined from the small library at Morrow House. I stayed outside. Not because she asked me to leave. Because the decision had to be hers without me watching for proof. 40 minutes later, the door opened. Elise stepped onto the porch holding her laptop. She looked tired. Not defeated. Different. How bad? I asked. My mother called me sentimental in front of 9 directors. Ouch. She considers it a terminal diagnosis. And? The anniversary campaign is dead. I stared at her. The whole thing? The version built around my family images. What happens now? Marketing has 6 weeks to develop another concept. That is not much time. No. What did it cost? Elise sat beside me on the porch bench. The reserved media buy can be repurposed. The production deposit cannot. How much? She told me. I whistled softly. That's painful. Yes. Your mother? Furious. Bored? 6-3. Against you? For me. That surprised me. Elise looked toward the ocean. I proposed a permanent brand rule. No employee relationship, family member, spouse, child, or private romantic partner can be used in Wayfair marketing without individual written consent for that specific campaign. That sounds normal. It should have been normal 20 years ago. I sat quietly. She continued. I also stepped off the anniversary creative committee. That got my attention. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? Because I would spend the next 6 weeks controlling every replacement concept to prove killing the old one was the right decision. That sounded exactly like her. And you're not going to? No. You love brand reviews. I know. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the ugly lighthouse magnet. The blue paint was already chipping. I am attempting a difficult experiment in allowing other competent adults to exist. Thoughts and prayers. She gave me a dry look. Then her expression softened. The board made another decision. What? Your research review stays Monday. I stiffened. Did you discuss it? No. Did you tell them anything about what I'm presenting? No. Did you tell Margaret to approve it? Elise turned toward me fully. No. I believed her. My decision about the campaign happened before Monday because it needed to happen whether your proposal is brilliant or terrible. That's rude. You prefer clean boundaries. I do. So do I now, apparently. I smiled. For several seconds we sat listening to the surf. Then Elise said, I owe you an apology. For the raffle? Yes. You already admitted it was insane. That isn't the same thing. She placed the magnet between us. I made a private desire public before I asked whether you wanted any part of it. I waited. And then, she continued, I called you mine. You didn't technically say that. My expression did. That's fair. A tiny smile came and went. I thought making my interest impossible to misunderstand was better than risking another 14 months of ambiguity. It was definitely impossible to misunderstand. It was also selfish. I looked at her. There was no CEO performance left in the sentence. Just Elise. What do you want now? I asked. She took her time. I want to take you to dinner in Chicago after we get back. Ordinary dinner? Yes. No raffle. No. No company audience. No. No island forcing proximity. Her eyes stayed on mine. No. And if I say I need a week? I wait a week. A month? Her jaw tightened. I wait angrily. I laughed. Then she added, but I ask again. That sounded right. I reached over and picked up the lighthouse magnet. You really bought this? Yes. It looks like it survived a shipwreck. That is why I chose it. I turned it over. Someone at the gift shop had written Astor Island on the back in uneven marker. You collect these because? Elise looked almost embarrassed. My grandmother traveled after my grandfather died. Alone. I had not expected that. She mailed me terrible magnets from every place she visited. She told me if I ever went somewhere for myself, I should bring home something too ugly to be useful. I smiled. Your grandmother sounds excellent. She was. Did she know about the family campaign? Yes. What did she think? Elisa's expression warmed. She called it expensive lying. I laughed. Of course she did. Elise took the magnet back. For years, these were the only things I bought on trips that weren't for work. And this one? She looked around at Morrow House. This one is complicated. Good trip? Ask me after Monday. I shook my head. Still CEO. Unfortunately. That evening, the lodge hosted its final couples dinner. We skipped it. Instead, we bought sandwiches from the island market and ate barefoot on the cottage steps while the sky turned orange over the dunes. It was the least curated moment of the entire trip. Elise looked happier than she had at any formal dinner I had ever attended with her. That told me more than the raffle announcement did. On our last morning, we carried our bags to the ferry dock before breakfast. My Wayfair carry-on rolled perfectly over the boardwalk. Elisa's ancient canvas duffel caught on a splinter. I looked at it. She looked at me. Do not. I said nothing. You have an expression. I have several. Not convincing. We reached Morrow House early enough that the lobby was almost empty. The black and white family photograph still hung behind reception. Elise stopped in front of it. This time she did not look away. The receptionist from our first day approached carefully. I hope you enjoyed your stay. We did, I said. Elise nodded. Yes. The woman smiled. Then she glanced toward the instant camera on the desk. We still owe you a welcome photo. Elise's shoulders tightened automatically. I said nothing. The decision belonged to her. She looked at the camera, then at the old photograph. Finally, she turned toward me. Micah. Yeah? Do you still have your film camera? In my bag. Take one. I studied her face. You sure? Yes. No posing? No. No marketing. Never. I took out the camera. Elise walked outside onto the wide porch. Morning wind lifted her hair. Her terrible canvas duffel sat at her feet. My carry-on stood beside it. I raised the camera. She looked toward me, not smiling because someone told her to, not reaching for me because a brand director needed warmth. Just looking. Come here, she said. I lowered the camera. You want me in it? Yes. That requires trusting the receptionist. I am growing recklessly. The receptionist came outside, took the camera, and waited while I joined Elise near the railing. I did not put my arm around her immediately. Elise noticed. Then she reached for my hand. Her choice. I let my fingers close around hers. The shutter clicked once. That was all. No second take. No better angle. No request to stand closer. The receptionist returned the camera. Elise looked almost relieved. I won't know whether your eyes were closed until the film is developed. They weren't. You cannot know that. I can feel competence. That sentence explains most of your problems. She ignored me. Inside, the receptionist took one instant photo too and held it out. For your own copy, not the wall. Elise accepted it. The image developed slowly. Two people on a porch. Wind. Two different bags. Hands joined between them. Nothing perfect about it. Elise turned the photograph over. She took a pen from the desk and wrote 4 words. Not for the campaign. Then she handed it to me. I added 4 more beneath hers. Not giving it away. Elise read them. Her eyes lifted. Micah. Yeah? Was that about the photo? Partly. Something changed in her face. I stepped closer. I still want the ordinary dinner. Good. And I want Monday's meeting to go however it goes. Good. And I still think announcing a couple's trip in front of the company was unhinged. Her mouth curved. I have received that feedback. But, Elise waited. So I gave her the answer without making her drag it out of me. But I don't want to be single because both of us are too careful to ask. For once, Elise Tanaka had no immediate reply. Her fingers tightened around the photograph. Then she kissed me in the quiet lobby beneath the old picture of a family pretending for the camera. Nobody applauded. Nobody posted it. Nobody sold anything. When we finally stepped apart, Elise looked down at the instant photo one more time. Should I keep this? I smiled. You stood up in front of 200 people because I tried to give away one prize. That is true. Try not to give this one away. She slipped the photograph into the front pocket of her battered duffel. Then she took my hand again and walked with me toward the ferry. This time, neither of us needed the trip to tell us what we were choosing. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.